The Ravens had a season last year where a majority of NFL fans almost expected them to win the AFC and potentially the Super Bowl with the season they were having. Lamar Jackson winning an MVP, one of the better offenses we've seen with a Lamar Jackson-led team. And the Ravens had a very strong defense last season, one of the best, but they were so close to being able to reach the Super Bowl, and some would even say a taunting call away. But after finishing out a good year like that, there are some things that are going to happen in the offseason. And so far in this offseason, for the Ravens, it seems like they have lost way more than they added, but they were expected to lose some pieces going into free agency. They lost guys like Gus Edwards, Devin Duvernay, and Patrick Queen, who were pretty noticeable players for this team. Even with a handful of losses this free agency, the Ravens went ahead and signed one of the top free agents in this year's free agency and were able to add Derrick Henry to this offense. The Ravens didn't have the money to bring back some of the guys they would have liked to, but they were able to bring in Henry, who immediately helps bring a boost to this offense that especially needed some help in the backfield. You now have Lamar, who can scramble, probably the best in the league, and Derrick Henry, who is still a beast. This guy will be able to find a ton of success here in Baltimore. This is one of the best signings the Ravens could have done, especially since the Giants grabbed Saquon. Derrick going to the Ravens made the most sense, but some other key losses the Ravens had this offseason was losing both of their starting guards, Kevin Zeitler and John Simpson. They also traded away tackle Morgan Moose for a 4th-round pick swap and a 6th-round pick. Signing Henry for 2 years worth up to $20 million, you're going to want to get the O-line addressed. Derrick is a very strong and physical running back. We've all seen what he's capable of doing, but he still needs protection up front and to help create lanes and opportunities for him. Last season, Henry played all 17 games and ranked 2nd in rushing yards with 1,167 and led the league in carries with 280 for 12 touchdowns for the Titans. He spent his entire career up until now with Tennessee, but it was almost expected for him to leave Tennessee, but it wasn't sure which team he would go to, but the Ravens is a great fit for him. It was only a few years ago in 2020 where Derrick won the NFL Offensive Player of the Year award after surpassing 2,000 rushing yards in one season. He also put up 17 touchdowns, which is a very dominant season for him, easily his best to date. Adding Henry to this team, regardless of the losses this roster had, makes them contenders in the AFC still. You still have your 2-time MVP franchise quarterback who is hungry to get to the Super Bowl after being so close last year. Lamar doesn't want to keep getting close. He wants to be able to get the job done and go all the way. It was said for some time that Lamar did not have weapons, but last season we saw the Ravens offense find a ton of success with rookie Zay Flowers. You also had Duvernay and Aguilar, OBJ even, who had some decent strides this season. Like I mentioned, the Ravens last season had one of the best offenses with their quarterback winning MVP, so coming into next season, they're going to want to keep the high level play on both sides of the ball. The Ravens did a great job running the ball last season, and they led the league in rushing yards per game with 156.5. This is a great stat when you added Derrick Henry to this team that does really well running. Yeah, they have some gaps to fill in the O-line, but I can already see RPOs and other players involving either Lamar or Derrick to be the ball carrier and completely faking out the opposite team. The Ravens last season were 4th in points, averaging 28.4 points per game. Lamar Jackson led this offense with a career-high 3,678 yards for a completion percentage of 67.2, which is also a career high in that stat for him. He led all quarterbacks last season with 821 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns, so he was very dominant on his feet like he usually is. Adding a talent like Henry to this backfield is definitely a scary sight for other defenses. Coach Harbaugh believes the duo of Lamar and Henry will be very tough for other teams to defend, as he is very high on them performing nicely together, as he also believes that they will be the foundation for this offense. General Manager Eric DeCosta needs to do what he can to make sure this offensive line is able to block for Henry and protect for Jackson, as that is the biggest concern for this team, and he's well aware of the situation. When you lose 3 of your starters, that's going to take a hit on any team no matter what. That's always tough to lose, especially up front on the O-line, but one of Jim Harbaugh's top priority that has been since 2008 is the offensive line. He understands that there will be some change up front, but is fine with that. He says he has a plan for it. The Ravens had some areas to address in this year's draft and especially had to get some new offensive linemen to develop, but that's not who they went with when they were on the clock with their 1st-round pick. The Ravens couldn't believe it when they were able to select Nate Wiggins with the 30th overall pick, as he is one of their top 20 rated players in the entire class. DeCosta had 8 different trade offers to move back in this year's draft, but decided not to since he loves what he sees in Wiggins so much. Wiggins was the 2nd fastest player in this year's combine behind now NFL NFL's leader for the 40-yard dash, Xavier Worthy. He only allowed 176 yards in 10 games last season. He has speed to match up these very quick receivers in the league and does a really nice job when it comes to tracking the ball down. The Ravens had a really good defense last season, allowing the fewest points in the league, so you now add a cornerback who can quickly move all over the field. It just got a lot harder for other teams to score the ball against them. Some noticeable stats from Wiggins is that he only allowed one completion over 20 yards last season. The Ravens last season led the league in fewest yards per attempt with 5.9 last season. He says he's the best corner in the draft, and the Ravens believe as well. Like I said, they couldn't even believe that he was still available when he was at the end of the first round. So he'll be able to come into this defensive scheme and learn a ton and develop into a key piece for this team. This is one of the best picks in the entire draft in my opinion, as it honestly is a little surprising that he fell this late in this year's draft. DaCosta speaks very highly of him already, saying that he has a superpower where guys aren't getting that much space against him one-on-one. Roquan Smith and Humphrey will also be good leaders for him to help teach him and guide him as he develops into a top cornerback in the league. The Ravens did later on address the offensive line gaps that needed to be filled by drafting offensive tackle Rajan Rosengarten from Washington. There were only 2 offensive tackles selected in 29 picks in the second round of the draft. Baltimore was able to snag one of the best and most mobile right tackles in the entire draft. He ran the fastest offensive lineman 40-yard dash with a 4.92. He's projected to go in and fill in the gap that Morgan Moses filled. Roger allowed no sacks in 2 years as a starting right tackle in 1,158 blocking plays. The Ravens filled in a huge loss last season as they needed a tackle bad, and this is a great pick that will immediately go in there and improve this offensive line. Moses led the team with 9 allowed sacks, so this is a great spot to replace as Morgan will go in there and want to help develop into an elite pass blocker for the reigning MVP. As they want to get back to the AFC Championship and reach the Super Bowl, they had some areas to address this offseason and in the draft and made the cornerback room even better than what it was and improved this offensive line that needed as much help as it could get. The Ravens also potentially got another draft steal in TJ Tampa, who had a lot of stats had way higher in their mock draft. Tampa ran a 4.58 40-yard dash but fell to the 4th round, which a lot of people didn't understand why. He did turn down an invitation to the Senior Bowl, which some said NFL teams weren't a fan of, but I'm not sure if that's the main reason why he fell so far. As a full-time starter these past 2 seasons, Tampa recorded 83 tackles, 3 interceptions, and 19 passes defended. He is a very physical player as well that brings great energy into the locker room. Overall, the Ravens needed to take care of a few things in this year's draft as they were able to fill in some key gaps, so it'll be interesting to see what they do and how they will be able to develop these younger guys. If you guys haven't yet, make sure you go down below and press the subscribe and turn on the post notifications if you haven't already. Make sure you leave a like and comment down below what you're most excited to see from the Ravens this upcoming season. I'll see you guys in the next one.